Hey, how's it going? So today I'm coming to you with day number 36 inside of a 60-day video challenge. And the thing that I want to talk about today is I want to talk about, is it your product or is it the way that you are positioning your product that is costing you to not necessarily get traction and not necessarily make sales? If you happen to be catching this video live, do me a favor and hit pound live. Let me know where you are tuning in from. And if you happen to be catching this via the replay, do me a favor and hit pound replay, please, and let me know where you are tuning in from. Knowing should I make changes to my product, because if I make changes to my product, it's going to be just that much more desirable, and or should I just reposition it, and should I just deliver it differently, and should I just market it differently is very important. And the reason why is because you want to be working on the right thing. You don't want to have a product and or a service that already fulfills on a promise, and you don't want to just keep tweaking that part of the process and not necessarily change the marketing angle, because it could be the marketing angle, right? So knowing which one is the problem is very important, because then you will know precisely what it is to work on. As an executive, when I used to work as an executive, I used to have a lot of tough conversations. And the reason why I used to have a lot of tough conversations is because I manage people. And anytime you manage people, sometimes you have to have conversations with them that may not necessarily be fun type of conversations. I remember having to have a conversation as an executive when I was running the financial aid department. I used to have two types of conversation, two of many, right? Let's just say two of many. One conversation type I used to have with people is based on their knowledge and or their expertise, right? So, hey, you have this knowledge, but this knowledge is not necessarily fulfilling the job. We need to train you from a knowledge standpoint, because it shows that in the quality of your work, you're not necessarily delivering the financial aid information appropriately, and there's an issue with the quality of your work. That's one thing that I had to address when I worked as an executive. Another thing that I oftentimes had to address is the way that someone delivered the information, and or their customer service, and or the way that they engage and interact with the student, and the student being the client in this case. I remember at one point I had to have a conversation with someone, and this person was amazing at what it is that they did. So from a knowledge standpoint, this person had no issues at all with their knowledge, and they were pretty much one of my top financial aid officers from a knowledge standpoint and from a quality standpoint. And I remember one day I received a survey from a student, and the student was complaining about this individual and was complaining about the way that this person delivered the information to them. And the student was complaining about the tone, and the student was complaining just about the person's customer service overall. And for me, whenever I receive a complaint from someone, from a student about someone else, and it's the very first time, there's usually a more of a light approach in saying, hey, this is the feedback that I've gotten, and this is the information that the person is saying. I'm not sure what may have happened, but just be mindful in your tone, be mindful in your delivery, so on and so forth, right? So the very first time, that is the tone that I usually take. However, right, if you have a second client or student in this case that is complaining about the same person, and then you have a third student that is complaining about the third person, then at that time, to me, I have to be a little bit more stern in my approach. I have to say, hey, you know what? In this case, it's not necessarily, the client, right? Because we have had 3 different clients that's complained about the exact same thing. It's not necessarily the client. It is you in this case. So, right. So because it's you in this case, let's address it. And the way that we simply address it is we just reinforce from a delivery standpoint the way that the information should be delivered. From a tone standpoint, what you should do from a tone standpoint, we role play, we may do some training. And when we do those type of things, right, it addresses it, because the scenario or the example that I'm giving you now is about an individual that was very good at what it is that they did. So from a quality standpoint, again, this person was top tier in the quality of their work. But from a delivery standpoint, right, we need to address the delivery component of it and we needed to address the customer service component of it. So in that case, it was very easy for us to be able to identify because there were some things that we kept track of on a very consistent basis. So when I worked as an executive on a very consistent basis, I can see the quality of the work that the individuals that worked in that department was coming up with, and I can also see the service level, right? I can go ahead and see the service level based on student feedback, so on and so forth. So I remember when I made the transition to entrepreneurship, one of the platforms that I was trying to use to gain clients is I was trying to use Meetup. I was using Meetup, and I was having people come to these Meetup presentations, and I would do these presentations, and after the presentation, I would offer what it is that I was, that I was providing. And for whatever reason, right, the response rate just was not what it could be. So then I had to ask myself a very important question, and that question was, is it the service that I'm providing that's an issue? Maybe I'm not providing enough, maybe I'm not doing this, maybe I'm not doing that. Or is it the way that I'm positioning it, or is it the way that I'm marketing it? And the way that you want to be able to answer that question, and the way that I was able to answer that question, I said to myself, do we have other people in the marketplace that is offering the exact same thing that I am offering and is having success in the marketplace? And the answer to that question was yes, there's other people in the marketplace that is offering the exact same thing that I'm offering, and they are indeed having success in the marketplace. So then the second question I had to ask myself is, how are those individuals positioning themselves, and am I positioning myself the exact same way? And the answer to that question is no, I wasn't necessarily positioning myself the exact same way. So then in that case, it wasn't necessarily my product, it was just the way that I was positioning it, the way that I was marketing it. It was the marketing process. So let's just say, for example, the marketing process I was using at the time, I would do an event. The event would have a small number of people, maybe about 5 or 10 people, and I would try to offer what it is that I do to those groups of individuals. That's one process, that's one delivery, that is one positioning, right? Or I can go and position it whereby I run, a Facebook ad, for example, drive someone to a phone call, have a conversation with them, and after I have a conversation with them, some of those individuals will go ahead and take the next step with me. Well, in my case, that model worked pretty well, right? So what I needed to do is I simply just needed to reposition the way that I was positioning my product and or my service. I needed to change the process, but not necessarily the product itself. So that's the question that I want you to be able to ask yourself, right? So ask yourself, is it my product, the product that I have, is it already being sold out in a marketplace? Is it being sold successfully? Is there a desire? Do people want the thing that I have in terms of your coaching service, in terms of your consulting service, etc.? If people do indeed want it, then essentially you don't necessarily have to make that many changes to the product itself. You just have to look at, how am I positioning myself out in the marketplace? How am I marketing it? And what marketing process am I doing? Because if there's other individuals that's already successful with your product and they're just marketing it differently, then that's the answer to your question right there. You don't necessarily have to do much work on the product side. Just go work on different marketing methodologies that's already been proven out in the marketplace. Just go out and go do that. By the way, if you need help with this type of stuff, with creating a marketing process to position your products and or your services for your coaching service or your consultant service, and you're watching this via social media, you can just feel free to send me a DM with the word marketing process, and we can have a conversation as to how I can help you to put together a marketing process. If you happen to be catching this on some other platform, there's going to be a link somewhere around this video, and the link is going to allow you to schedule a time with me, and that time is going to give us the opportunity to have a conversation and to see if I can help you to put together a marketing process as well. That's it for today. If you happen to be catching this live, just do me a favor and hit pound live, and if you happen to be catching this via the replay, just hit pound replay. That's it for now. I'll talk to you soon.